Okay, pleasant day to each and every one of you. So this is Professor Torres doing a second recording for this International Tourism and Culture course. So for this video lecture, we're going to hear about the industry, the tourism industry. And as you listen to this presentation, you're going to learn the different terminologies related to tourism. Okay, so if you do not understand a certain portion of this video lecture, I guess what I would like to recommend for you to do would be to pause the video, write down what you do not understand, and probably go back again to that portion, or you may write it down and bring it to class when we see each other next week. Okay, so let me start. You will see here that on the screen it says that tourism is a major global industry. Why do we say it's a global industry? Industry meaning we're making money out of this activity of tourism. It's a global industry because its contribution to economic development has encouraged countries to pursue this highly dynamic sector. So when we say economic development, that means to say whatever a destination, whatever a region or a country uses for the development, like for example, building airports, maybe constructing roads, okay, or improving a place is actually coming from the earnings that the destination get from its tourism activity. That's why most of the countries in the world are encouraged to pursue this activity of adapting tourism as their number one income generating activity. So we have a fact here. I got this from the United Nations World Tourism Organization website, and it says that globally, travel and tourism's direct contribution to GDP, or gross domestic product, was approximately $2.9 trillion in 2019. Maybe we cannot imagine how much is 2.9 trillion US dollars. That's really a huge amount of money that keeps the world going with that mentioned amount. And so what I just want to highlight on the screen or on this first slide is tourism is an activity that we can never forgo, that if in case a country or a destination has something to brag about or something to show to the world, they do that by embracing a tourism activity. Okay, so just to prove that tourism helps in the development of a destination, I have here a photo of Korea. Okay, a photo of Korea, I think taken maybe what you see on your left is sometime in between the 1940s and Korea, specifically Seoul, in the 2000. So you'll see the big difference of this place, Seoul, during the early times when tourism is not yet progressing compared to the time that Korea is now known as a tourist destination. Okay? And another photo that I would like you to see is that's Korea on your left during the 1900s. And that is Korea now on your right. And if you will look at the two photos, you will really see how big is the improvement, how massive is the development of the destination or of Seoul when tourism became an activity of Korea. Okay, so let's move on and see what are the different factors that contributed to the growth of this industry. So its growth has been fueled by several factors, such as development in transportation. So nowadays, if you're a tourist, you have so many choices of transportation, like maybe airplane, ship, or maybe the speed train, or probably you want to see or have a scenic view of the place. So you'll be opting for a tourist bus. And now it has come to our knowledge that tourism does not happen only here on Earth, but it can also happen outside Earth. That's why there is a space tourism that is emerging at the moment, and they use a spaceship in order to transport the people who would like to see the outside of the earth. So the transportation is one of the factor that fueled the growth of this industry. In addition, we can say that tourism was developed because of the improvement of communication and technology. So, in the early times, if you would like to go to a destination, what you have to do would be maybe to call a travel agency using your landline and ask for a possible destination, ask information related to the place that you would like to visit, ask also the schedule of the flight. So the information is something that you want to get for you to finalize your trip. But nowadays, there are so many ways of accessing information. There are so many ways of, communicating to the different I would say sectors that you will be getting in touch with when you travel. Like, for example, you can call a travel agency, or you can probably use the internet to search for your own air ticket. You can also use the internet to book your hotel. You can also use the internet to buy uh, your train tickets. So, because communication is very effective, and because communication has developed um, so rapidly, and so I would say uh, so massive, it means that we can definitely be going to a place at a more shorter time compared to before. So before, you have to wait for the response of the travel agency with regards to your inquiry. Now, as you let your fingers walk through the keyboard of your PC or of your smartphone, you can immediately get the answer about the destination, the price, or probably it will give you a suggestion on what airline to use to save some money. Okay, so the first is transportation. Now we're talking about communication. And also, another thing that fueled the development is the opening up of barriers. What do we mean opening up of barriers? Opening up of barriers meaning that people can go to several destinations without having to worry about their visa. Like, for example, the Koreans has a very powerful passport, meaning that if you are a Korean citizen, you can go to, I think, 100 plus countries and need not to bother to get a visa. For those who do not know, a visa is a pass. It's an entry permit that will allow you to visit a country or to go to a destination, especially if it's overseas. So your visa or being a Korean citizen allows you to visit so many destinations that for some people cannot be visited unless they're given the visa. Like, for example, in my case, I am a Filipino, and if I would like to visit Canada or US, then I have to have the visa to enter these two countries. Okay, nowadays, aside from giving having more visa-free destinations, um, the connections also, like for example, sometime in the history it happened that Germany was actually divided into two. Okay, and then when the barrier collapsed, then it gave tourists the opportunity to see the other side of Germany, which is not visible to tourists. So the barriers are usually being removed so that people can travel more, can visit more places. Okay? And yeah, because of that, people can definitely go to wherever they want. And because of the transportation availability, easy access to uh, tourism products, and also because of the opening of barriers, there is a growing demand of people to travel. People nowadays, they have money because of the rising middle class and because it's easy to book a ticket, and most of the companies are considerate for giving a for offering a compressed work week, or for some people they can work on a holiday. Then this also supported the growing demand of people to travel. Okay, so are we clear? Okay, let's move on to the next. So it is not surprising then for tourism to be described as one of the most remarkable economic and social phenomena of the past century. I would like you to focus on the economic phenomenon. What is the economic phenomenon? We all know that we cannot travel without money. Okay, and because there's a growing middle class, and people can get or can make more money than before because there are more opportunities now, more industries now that makes people employed, then economically people have more, meaning aside from the daily requirement that they need, like for food, for shelter, and probably for health insurance, they have something extra to spend. And that something extra is something that they used for traveling. That's why it says this economic phenomenon really pushed this industry to happen. And social phenomena means that, as I've said, there's a growing middle class. Families would prefer to go to destinations together, or maybe nowadays, like you, college students or university students would usually take a part-time job or an arrobite. And what you do to your money after working for a few months would be save and go to a certain place. I've heard a lot of students doing that. So not everybody is rich, and so what they do is they try to find a way to support what the travel activity that they have in mind. So this economic and social phenomena of the past century made it a global industry. Okay, so this is the issue that we have for tourism. Uh, Tourism remains to be a complex phenomenon. Let's try to understand first what is complex. Complex means not easy to understand. Complex means that there are so many things that are intertwined, so many things that happens that are interlinked together. It's complex because as we say that tourism activity has advantages, what comes together with these advantages are also disadvantages. Therefore, as a tourism destination manager, or probably as someone who will be working in the tourism or travel industry, then you have to weigh the consequences. You have to weigh the pros and cons of being involved in this industry. So that's why we say it's complex. Like, for example, Another thing that also makes it complex is the seasonability of the activity. Like, for example, now cherry blossom is fast approaching, and so some people would travel far places. Like, Filipinos, we don't have the spring, and so if it's just a regular normal activity, then some of the people from my country would go to um, Japan or Korea to witness the cherry blossom. But nowadays, um, travel has been restricted. So, complex phenomenon that has been perceived at different perspectives. Why do we have different perspectives in terms of looking at the tourism industry? There are different perspectives because there are different sectors of the society. Meaning, if you are a tourist, you will see tourism from a certain point of view. If you are someone who represents a business within the travel industry, you also have a different perception about the tourism activity. Or if you're representing the government, and so your perspective about tourism is also different. Like, for example, for those who are, I would say, concerned about the health, the safety issues that comes together when you travel. So we have differing voices that will say, oh, you can already open your destination because most of the people do have the vaccines, or as long as the people will give us a negative swab test result, then it would be possible to continue the activity. So there are different perspectives. And these perspectives are the voices of the people from the different sectors of the society that I have mentioned. It can be the tourist, it can be the host community, it can be a business within the tourism industry, like, for example, a restaurant or a hotel, or it can be the government organization that helps in the marketing and the managing of the tourism business. Okay, so all of those complexities are the issues that we will be talking about as we learn the different lessons in this course. Okay, so this is what is the latest as far as the information from the United Nations World Tourism Organization. This is the organization that is responsible for the tourism activity globally. So international arrivals fell by 72% over the 10 months of 2020. Why? We all know the reason why, because of the COVID-19. And so, because this happened, there were restrictions on travel. There is also a low consumer confidence, meaning to say that who restricts the travel? The government agencies restricts the travel. The government agencies. Now, the low consumer confidence is coming from the tourist perception, because they are afraid that they might get the virus, and so they decided not to do traveling. They stopped traveling. And because of this, there's a global struggle to contain. Not because of this. There's also a global struggle to contain the COVID-19 virus. That's the reason why travel were restricted. And also the consumers agree that they to delay their travel, because as you travel, it means that you're also spreading the virus. Either you spread the virus, or the virus can be acquired as you travel. So because of these reasons, it became the worst year on record in the history of tourism. Imagine 72%. So it's really falling. Okay. Now, let's look. This is the very latest at the 2020 tourism and how does the coronavirus, COVID-19, affected the tourism industry. Okay, as you see here, this is a chart coming from the World Tourism Organization, which was recently published. It was published in January 28, 2021. And we see here the statistics about the percentages of lost for each region of the world. So it's divided into Asia and the Pacific, Africa, Middle East, and then the whole world is there, and then Europe and the Americas. So the yellow is different because this represents the average, okay, the average of the losses, the average of the fluctuation of the tourist arrivals from the different regions of the world. So if you see the one that is worstly affected by this COVID is the Asia in the Pacific, having a minus 84% tourist drop. Okay, then this was followed by both Africa and the Middle East losing 75% of tourists. And Europe is next after Africa and Middle East, having a 70% uh, tourist deduction. And then followed by the America, which is pretty close because it's only a 1% difference. Okay, so if you're going to average the loss of tourists in the whole world as a whole, the world has lost 74% of the tourist arrival. So probably the remaining 26%, these are people that have to travel because they have to go back to their home country. That's why there's still travel, or maybe for military or I would say medical reasons. Okay, so we were totally devastated, or I would say the tourism industry is totally devastated and was greatly affected by this COVID-19. Now, another statistics that I would like to show you is the same thing. I mean, it's just that they traced the I would say the loss of income or the loss of tourists as the virus is spreading around the world. So you see that in January, where the news spread about the COVID-19, there's a -1. Okay, there's a -1 decrease. This is not so big yet because the news came only, I think, at the last quarter of January. Then slowly, okay, then February it became, I think, a global pandemic, having a 60% loss of tourists, or tourists. And then we go to March, having minus 64%. The biggest are the next months after March. That's the April, May, and June. And then it picked up a little in July, and then again a little in 77 in August and in September. But as you see, these are all negative figures. And negative figures would mean that the budget of each country, the budget of each region is also very much affected. Okay, so you see what's the effect of this virus. A lot of people were laid off. A lot of people lost their job. A lot of businesses did not make money. And some people are suffering because of this. Kids who are actually children of those who have businesses or those who were laid off have to quit school. So there is a boomerang effect, or there is, I would say, a multiplier effect of this COVID-19 pandemic. Okay, so that's a sad thing. However, as the law of supply and demand shows us that whenever there's a decline, the only way for it to behave after a decline would be to go up. So we're waiting for the world to normalize. And as the world, or as the globe normalizes, then we are hoping that the tourism industry will pick up as we wait for the normalization. We're waiting for the post-COVID normal, or the new normal, after we receive the vaccine, after every precautionary or safety measures has been implemented. So that's what is going on right now. It's sad, especially if you are a tourism management major who will be graduating soon. So probably you're thinking right now, what will happen to you after you graduate? But do not worry, things will change. Okay? So let's move on to the definition of tourism. So, how do we understand tourism? Or how do we define tourism? Tourism has many definitions, but because we would like to have a uniform definition, the World Tourism Organization has given us a definition that will give us a clear picture of what tourism is. So, according to the UNWTO definition, tourism involves the activities of people traveling and staying in a place away from their home environment for leisure, business, or other purposes. And so, let's try to break down the definition of tourism for us to understand what does it mean. Okay, so it says here that tourism involves activities. So what activities are we talking about here? It can be leisure, it can be business, or any other purposes, meaning that tourism only happens when there is an activity. And who are the doers? Who are the animators of this activity? The doers, or the animators of the activity, are the people. And who are these people? Specifically, these people are called visitors or tourists. And what do they do for them to complete the activity? So they have to travel, okay? That's a requirement. The people has to travel. So where do they have to go? They have to go to a destination which is not their home. How is this? Meaning to say that, let's give an example. If you are here in Daegu, okay, because you are studying in the university, and because you want to uh, go to your classroom every day, you want a face-to-face activity, and because you live in Pohang, which is quite far from Daegu, you decided to rent a one room, okay, a one room unit, so that you can stay close to the university. Now, when opportunity comes that you would like to go home, because maybe it's a weekend or because it's a holiday, you go home. And for you to go home, you have to travel, right? Either you have to drive your own car, or you have to take a public transportation. That activity is not considered tourism. It's not considered tourism because it says here that for you to be considered the person doing the tourism activity, you have to travel in a place which is not your home. So from Daegu, going back to Pohang to stay in your place overnight or for the weekend is not tourism. Tourism only happens when you go to another place. Like, for example, I'm living here in Daegu, and there's a long weekend. Okay, like long weekend is Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And I decided that I would like to spend my long weekend somewhere else. Okay, and that place is in Busan. So if I travel to Busan and if I book a room, okay, a hotel room in Busan, and stay there during the long weekend, that activity is considered tourism. Why? Because I'm going to Busan for the purpose of recreating or for the purpose of probably shopping. And so, uh, I go to Busan on Friday and goes back to Daegu during uh, the afternoon of Sunday. That is considered a tourism activity. So, do we understand now what is tourism? Tourism involves the activities of people traveling and staying in a place away from home. So, an important element here that we have to understand is tourism is traveling. There has to be a movement for it to become a tourism activity. So traveling, okay, it's moving. That's why it's ing. And staying in a place. So meaning it can be for days or for several days. It can be for a week or it can be longer. How about if it's just a day tour? Can we still consider that tourism? I'm going to answer that question later. Okay? So a place away from their home environment for leisure, business, or other purposes. Leisure, we understand what this is. You want to spend your time freely in whatever way you enjoy. Business is if you are attending a conference or probably you are meeting a partner in another place. And the other purposes, this is what we will talk about in the next lessons. Okay? So are we clear? So again, if this is not very clear for you, write it down and I'll give you more examples as we see each other online. Let's move on. Okay. So I always say UNWTO, since I began talking about tourism. So the UNWTO is United Nations World Tourism Organization. It stands, it's United Nations World Tourism Organization. So as I've said previously, the definition of tourism was given to us by the UNWTO. Not only the definition of tourism, but the definition of tourist, because there are different kinds of tourists. This is set by the UNWTO for the reason that they want to standardize the collection of the tourism information. What tourism information? A tourism information can be the statistics on how many people travel during a certain month, or maybe how many people travel inbound or maybe outbound. So I'm going to explain these terminologies later. By the National Tourism Administrations of the United Nations World Tourism member countries. As I've said, UNWTO is a global organization. And the members of this global organization are the different member countries. One member country is Korea. And because Korea is a member country, Korea keeps a record of people that are doing this tourism activity. Those people who are coming to Korea, people getting out of Korea, people who are traveling within Korea. So these are the statistics, these are the numbers. These numbers are very important for us to trace How is the industry doing? So as you see, we will not be able uh, to see how did it affect the 2020 year if we don't get the statistics. So these numbers are very important for us to understand how the industry is moving. Is it continuously increasing or is it continuously declining because of the current situation that we have right now? Okay, so again, if you will look at different books or if you will browse the different ebooks that I have given you, probably you will see different definitions given by scholars, given by those people who study the tourism activity. But what is important is we're not arguing what is the best definition or what is the appropriate definition. But what is important for us to understand is there are so many definitions of tourism. We just have to pick up the keywords like there has to be a movement, it's about people, it's about the activities of people, and it's about traveling to a place different from their home. Okay, so yeah, I'm telling that to you in advance because you might question the definition that I have given you. We're not after a single definition of tourism. We are here to understand what is tourism. Okay, so let's move on to again. So this is the definition that I have mentioned: the activities of persons traveling to and staying in places outside their usual environment. Okay, what is new here is there is a time duration. It says here not more than one consecutive year. So aside from the movement, aside from going to places which is not their home, then another thing that we have seen here is the time duration. So when are you considered a tourist? You are considered a tourist if you will not stay in that place that you visited for more than a year. Like of course in my case, I've been here in Korea since 2010, and this year is 2021. So that means to say I've been here in Korea for 11 years. So how will you consider my status here in Korea? How will you call me now as a person living here in Korea? Am I a tourist because I'm not from this place? I want to hear your answers during our online class, okay? So let's move on. Now, another thing, okay, as I've said, we're full of definitions. Another word that I would like you to understand is the word visitor. So it says here that a visitor is a traveler. Okay, so what is a traveler? When we say traveler, meaning that the person has to move, the person has to go to another place. So a visitor is a traveler taking a trip to a main destination outside his her usual environment for less than a year for any main purpose other than to be employed. Okay, so there's a new additional information for us to really understand who is the visitor. A visitor is a traveler. So can we consider the person that is not named in the definition of tourism, like this one, the person? Can we call that person a traveler? Okay, so looking back here, so that's a traveler. So can we also say that the word traveler is equal to the word visitor? Think about that. Is the word traveler the same as the word visitor? Of course, you can always consult the dictionary, but at this point, because we are looking at terminologies within a context of an industry, then we have to really understand how it is being used within this industry. Okay, so it's a traveler taking a trip to the main destination. We understand that. For less than a year, we understand that also because that defines what tourism is. But a new thing that was revealed to us at this slide is for any main purpose other than to be employed. When you are employed, what does it mean? When you are employed, it means that you're making money. Whatever you do, as long as you make money. Like, for example, you will go to a place to be a seasonal worker, or maybe you will go to a place because you have to host an event, okay? Or probably you have to be there because you have a shooting, assuming that you are an actor. So that is what we call a visitor. Okay, so if you're not making money. So one very important thing to understand when we look at this industry is it says here that you cannot make money. Once you make money, you are not involved in a tourism activity. Okay, so let's hold it at that point because we still have some more terminologies that we need to understand. So the first is I have given you the definition of tourism. I also have given you the definition of a visitor. Then there's another word that we see here, traveler, okay, that we have to understand as we go through this course. Okay, so before we look at the traveler, let's go back to the definition given to us by UNWTO. For UNWTO, a tourist is a visitor who spends an overnight at the destination. Okay, so a tourist is a visitor who spends an overnight at the destination. The question is, what if you stay in the destination for more than one night? Can you not be considered a tourist? Can you then be considered a visitor? So that is something we have to understand, right? Because according to the UNWTO, that is the tourist definition. And if you see here, the word visitor is used to define a tourist. Okay, so can we say that a tourist is always a visitor? That we can interchange the word visitor and tourist? Yes, we can interchange the word tourist and visitor because these two, as far as the industry is concerned, is one and the same. It has the same meaning. So if you don't want to use tourist, you can use the word visitor. That's why sometimes in statistics that you will see, it says there the number of visitors instead number of tourists. So they usually interchange these two words. Okay? So go back, tourism, tourist, visitor, and what else did we learn? Another word? Yeah, visitor. Visitor, tourist. Okay, now, I think this is the last slide that I will cover for this topic. So, travel, okay, because sometimes you say, I will be traveling to Asia, is one word that is used interchangeably with tourism. Okay? Travel is one word that is used interchangeably with tourism. However, not all travels are tourism. Okay? So I'd like to stop at this point because I guess you're having information overload, and I would like you to think of the different words that I defined here during the introduction. First, the definition of tourism. Second, tourist. Third, visitor. Then you also encounter the word traveler. And this time, what we have on the last slide that we are seeing right now is it says that travel is one word that is used interchangeably with tourism, especially those people who are not studying tourism. And the argument here says that not all travels are tourism. I would like to leave it at this point, and I would like you to think about what do we mean by this. Not all travels are tourism. So we will continue this discussion in the classroom. For the meantime, I would like you to familiarize yourself with the terminologies that I did mention. And also, I would like to remind you of your activity. As I've said during our online class, that you have to prepare a 3-slide presentation about your hometown, right? So that is the first. Now, I also did mention in the course orientation that I want you to prepare 3 slides also and talk about a place or a destination or destinations that you have visited. Now, for purposes of clarification, I would like to make it clear that the 2 activities needs to be done. However, this coming week, okay, our week 3, what we will do first is to listen to the presentation of your hometown. That's the 3 slides all about your hometown. And if you still have time, we're going to listen to the destinations. But I guess we can reserve that destination in our 4th week. So for next week, that is week 3, on the 15th of this month, we're going to continue our discussion about the introduction, and at the same time, we will be listening to your presentation about your hometown. So, how are you going to prepare the 3 slides about your hometown? Your hometown is something that you are familiar with, right? You're familiar because you grew up in that place. And so, if you are going to invite us to see your hometown, and you want to excite us about your hometown, what are the things that you will tell us to convince us to visit your place? What is your hometown popular? So don't say, teacher, there's nothing to be seen in my place. I don't believe that, because every place has its own attraction. Sometimes we're looking at places, but only to find out that the place is not very attractive. It's the people of that place who makes the place attractive. So I want you to think, what are the selling points that you will share with us to convince that we visit your destination? Okay, so as I've said in the 3-slide presentation, the pictures doesn't have a limit. The only limit is the number of slides that you will be showing us. You are also given a considerate time to do your presentation. So each of you can do your presentation from 2 minutes up to 5 minutes. And you are free to use whatever medium you want to deliver your presentation. You need not to do a live presentation. You can also record yourself, just like what I'm doing right now, if you want it that way. And if you're not ready yet to talk, that's okay. That's perfectly understandable. Just let me know in advance so I will not count on you. And I can plan the online class wisely. Okay? So the key is to communicate with me with regards to whatever you feel uh, in connection to the presentation. Okay, if you still have questions and my instructions are still not enough for you to come up with a 3-slide presentation about your hometown, please send me a message and I'm going to respond to you immediately if I don't have class. Okay, so that's about it for this video lecture. Again, remember our presentation will be on Monday about your hometown. So thank you for listening, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.